my patio. Hopefully you can see the garden in the background in all its glory. She's really popping off right now. We've had a good amount of rain. We've got melons and cucumbers and tomatoes, lots of chilies. I love summer produce. It's just the absolute best. We're not quite in the triple digits, which is like customary for a Texas summer. We're not quite there yet, which is why I wanted to kick us off outside this morning. It's cloudy, it's a little breezy. The birds are pretty loud this morning. You'll probably hear them chirping in the background, but I think it's nice. I wanted to try something a little different for our May recap video. Sometimes these sit down and talk videos feel a little bit abrupt, like, okay, we're just starting off with me talking right at the camera, and I don't know, I wanted this to feel more like you and I are just sitting down for coffee on a lovely morning to chat about the books that we read last month, you know? So let's get started with a cozy little recap of what I read in May. Grab a drink or a little treat or some water and enjoy. So May was a little bit of a slower month. I read 6 books last month, which I know is still a good amount of books, but the way that it felt, it just kind of felt like the books that I was reading just dragged on a little bit. I wasn't feeling like very energized to read, and that was primarily because life just got a little bit crazy last month. I launched this channel, which was really wonderful and exciting, but of course I had to kind of get adjusted to the schedule of filming and editing. That was a really steep learning curve and really forced me to reality check myself as far as time management goes, because I think I like to underestimate how long it really takes me to get things done. We celebrated my partner's birthday last month, and work also got kind of really crazy. My schedule was just all over the place. So by the time I actually had time to sit down to read, I either needed to work on a video or I was just dead tired and had like 0 spoons left to read. So we still got some good books in. I'm feeling a lot more energized and fresh for June, and very excited about the books that I have ahead of me and the books that I have geared up for you guys as well. I think it's going to be a really good month. So first up in May, we have Big Swiss. This is a contemporary fiction, and I think officially my first weird girl lit book. So we're following our protagonist and narrator, Greta, who has recently moved to the town of Hudson, New York, which is a bit of a small rural town. She's moved in with her friend Sabine into a bit of a dilapidated house kind of out in the woods. It's a bit secluded, and it's a very quirky house to say the least, as are pretty much all of our characters. Greta works as a freelance transcriber for a sex therapist named Om. She transcribes all of his sessions. Of course, the clients' names are kept confidential, and because of that, she kind of develops her own nicknames for them. Because it's such a small town, and because everybody kind of knows everybody, Greta pretty regularly is able to identify Om's clients. When she's out grabbing coffee, she hears a voice, she recognizes it, and she's like, oh, I know that person, it's so-and-so. Insert nickname here. There is one client in particular that has really captured Greta's attention, and she has nicknamed her Big Swiss because all she knows about her is that she's originally from Switzerland and she's very tall, so hence the nickname. She bumps into Big Swiss one day at the dog park and becomes her friend without telling her that she knows pretty much the most intimate parts about her life because of her job transcribing Om's sessions. All the while, Greta does not let Big Swiss know the truth about her work as a transcriber, nor does she tell Om. So, as you can imagine, drama ensues. I rated Big Swiss 4 stars. I really enjoyed the book. I thought Jen Began's writing was great, very funny, and kind of a tongue-in-cheek humor, if you will. The book is pretty silly and ridiculous, but not in like a throwaway sort of way. I would say it's a very self-aware book. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does kind of explore more serious or meaningful topics in a very comedic way, almost like it's a parody of adulthood in different eras of your life. Greta is a pretty ridiculous character. She is morally gray, to say the least. She makes some very questionable decisions. I think you could say the same about the rest of our characters. Everyone's a little kooky in this book. Each one of the characters felt very different, very unique. I felt like the irony in this book was pretty well done. There's a lot of subtext here. You're kind of like reading beyond what's on the page, and so I think the book asks you to be a little bit contemplative while you're reading, and giving you a really kind of comedic lens to do that through. It was very good at kind of towing that line, and definitely made me laugh, definitely makes you cringe. I would read up some content warnings because it does explore some heavier themes, and you should definitely make sure that you're aware of those before going into this book. So that was Big Swiss by Jen Began. Next up, we have The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. This is the second book in the Atlas series and falls into the fantasy / dark academia / honestly, I would almost describe it as like a little more magical realism than fantasy. It's kind of in a weird, it's in the middle of that Venn diagram, whatever that is. I can't really give a huge summary of this book without giving away spoilers if you haven't read the first book, so I think I'll do a section at the end of the video where I'll talk more about the series as a whole with spoilers for those who have read the series and want to hear my thoughts on it. I rated The Atlas Paradox 3 stars. Overall, I thought it was fine. There was a good chunk of the book in the middle where I felt like it dragged a bit, and I was getting kind of impatient. To be honest, my mind was so blown by the third book that I can't even remember what happens in the second book at this point. It's all a bit of a whirlwind. The second book, now in retrospect, really feels like it serves just as kind of a bridge between books 1 and 2 and isn't as strong as a standalone book within the series, I would say. It's really kind of dependent on both the first and the third books. I mentioned this in my vlog, in my last vlog, but something that I really appreciate about Olivia Blake is that she doesn't do the thing where she does like a long retelling or summary of the previous book in her series, which I can't stand when authors do that. I think if we're reading a book in a series, you can assume that we read the previous book, and I don't want to waste page time rehashing what happened in the last book. You know, you should be able to either leave enough context for me to be able to easily recall, or I should be able to recall enough from the first book to make my way through the second, third, whatever book in the series I'm in. So it had been a minute since I read The Atlas 6, the first book in the series, and initially I was struggling to remember, but ultimately I ended up recalling most of the important things and was able to follow the book just fine. I would describe the tone of the entire series honestly as a little bit muddy sometimes. There's so many different perspectives. You're following multiple POVs. There's the 6 main characters, and sometimes you're also following additional characters' POVs, and everyone's being shady. There's a lot of like twists and turns. There's a lot of things that are being hidden from you as the reader, and so it does feel a bit muddy sometimes. And anyway, because of that, I needed a bit of a break. I needed a bit of a palate cleanser before I jumped into the third book, The Atlas Complex, which is the last book that I read in May. So in between, I picked up some contemporary romance. The third book that I read in May was Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. So in this book, we are following our main character and narrator, Chloe Brown, who is a bit of a type A girly who's been I would say, more of a recluse in the recent years of her life. The book opens up with her experiencing a bit of a near-death life experience, and in a very dramatic moment where she is supposed to see like her life flash before her eyes, she has a vision of what her obituary might look like, and it's very boring, to say the least. So when Chloe gets home, she decides to write a list, her Get a Life list, where she lists out some bold, some reckless, some adventurous and exciting things that she wants to accomplish to hopefully make her real eventual obituary a little more colorful when her time eventually comes. When she checks off the first item from her list, which is to move out of her parents' home, she finds herself in an apartment building that is run by the Superintendent Redford Morgan, also known as Red, who she unfortunately keeps bumping into. Redford is probably her complete opposite in that he's very openly friendly and charismatic, very sexy and hunky, which she's very beautiful, but he's, I would say, perhaps more confident in himself and wears that pretty comfortably. He's tattooed, he rides a motorcycle, and he's very much characterized by his need to really help those around him. One day, Chloe gets herself in a little bit of a snafu and is forced to accept Red's help, which prompts a more meaningful conversation and gives Chloe the idea that she might have a proposal for Red that she wants to keep very businesslike, very transactional, that would ultimately have Red help her accomplish the items, or most of the items, on her list. As Red begins to take her on these little adventures, Chloe opens up more and begins to kind of get reacquainted with herself. She's living with chronic pain. She has fibromyalgia, and it's something that she tries very hard to hide. But Redford, of course, immediately is able to pick up on it, and the two begin to get very close, as friends, of course. I gave Get a Life Chloe Brown 4 stars. I'm still pretty new to the world of contemporary romance, but I would say in the past, I've not felt very motivated to pick up these sorts of books because usually I find that I don't enjoy the writing, or I find some of the plot devices or tropes to be rather silly, or to be honest, just annoying. I didn't find that to be true with Talia Hibbert's book. Overall, I had a really good time reading it. My absolute favorite thing about the story is the banter. The British banter is just on another level. They really know how to do it, and it's delightful to read. The chemistry that Chloe and Red have in the story is just so yummy. And I really appreciated that the internal struggles that they each faced, the conflicts that arose as a result of those struggles, felt very real, very relatable. Talia Hibbert doesn't ever use these silly tropes like miscommunication or anything that might feel a bit immature for the age of her characters, and I appreciated that a lot. I felt like their struggles were very relatable, and the way that they faced them felt very mature as well, and I just thought it was lovely. I mentioned this in the vlog as well, but I love having a woman of color as our protagonist who contains multitudes of aspects to her personality, to her identity, and it just felt real, you know, because that's what people are. We contain multitudes, and we're not just defined by one thing. It wasn't your typical like super petite, dainty, but somehow super tough main character, which, I mean, there's room and there's space for that, but it's a little bit overdone. This was very refreshing, and I loved it. Get a Life Chloe Brown is the first book in a series called The Brown Sisters because, of course, Chloe has two younger sisters. One of my favorite things about Get a Life Chloe Brown was her relationship with her sisters. They just have the best relationship and also very relatable if you have a sister or if you have sisters. I think you'll also really like that aspect of this book, and that is what led me to pick up the second book in the series, which is Take a Hint, Dani Brown, following Danica Brown, who is very one-track minded and career-driven. She is a professor at a local university, and she's a real go-getter. However, as bold and confident as she is in her life, when it comes to romance, she is also very one-track minded in that life unfortunately taught her the hard way that trusting people does not always lead to warm and fuzzy feelings, but in fact can lead to betrayal and sadness and disappointment. And so when it comes to romance, Dani decides to keep things strictly physical and more casual, a bit of a no strings attached type of approach. One day there's a fire drill in her academic building at work, and her good friend and very sexy security guard, Zafir, has to come in and help her when she gets caught in a bit of trouble. The moment that Zafir takes her out of the building ends up becoming a viral social media moment. And as it turns out, Zafir, who up until now Dani just knew to be her silly, very grumpy, very serious friend, is actually a bit of a mildly famous ex-rugby player, which everybody now recognizes since this viral moment, and takes off on a trend which just makes me giggle, using the hashtag Dr. Rugby. When Zafir is not working as a security guard or reading his favorite romantic novels, Zafir is working to build his charity organization, Tackle It, which works to support boys in sports learn how to explore and communicate their emotions. He finds out, much to his own dismay, that this viral moment can actually help get more eyes on Tackle It and help him grow the charity and get it in front of more people, which is what he's been wanting to do for a very long time, but hasn't really been able to do because he kind of hates all this social media stuff. However, the opportunity becomes too good to pass up when he starts getting requests for interviews at local radio stations. So he comes to his friend Dani and asks for a very strange favor. Will she please fake date him to help him keep the wave of Dr. Rugby alive long enough for him to get enough traction with Tackle It so that he can help build this organization to really make a difference in what he's passionate about. I gave Take a Hint, Dani Brown 3 stars. I really enjoyed this book as well. I did not enjoy it as much as the first book in the Brown Sisters series. I thought this one actually went a bit fast, and I was enjoying both characters and maybe wanted to dig a little deeper. We were exploring very different characters in this book with a much different dynamic than our couple in book 1. One thing that I really appreciated was the way that Talia Hibbert writes a person experiencing anxiety, which is something that Zafir struggles with. So that is something that he has to face regularly, and something that also becomes a bit triggered with the altered media attention that this viral moment has kind of given him. I felt that Talia Hibbert really grasped that experience well in her words, and it really came across very, very thoroughly across the page. I love that she is very intentional with her characters and giving them very real human experiences that many of us can relate to, and I appreciate seeing that in a character that you normally wouldn't see it in. You know, like, I feel that normally when you're reading these romance novels, your characters don't seem flawed in ways that always feel relatable, and the quote-unquote flaws which are really just, I mean, it's just the human condition, right? The flaws that these characters have are super real and super relatable and very well expressed. So I love that she does that. So I do plan on picking up the third book to find out what Eve has in store for us. The last book that I read in May was The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake, which is the third and final book in the Atlas series. Oh boy, this book. Once again, I can't really give a good summary without giving any spoilers, so I will do that after I tell you my review. I gave The Atlas Complex 3 stars. I don't know what to say about this book, to be honest. I felt that the momentum in this book was a little bit stronger than in book 2, and honestly, after reading the third book, I don't know that we needed that much of book 2. It just kind of solidified my original thought after reading the second book that it could have been much shorter. In book 3, we are dealing with the consequences of the choices that our wide cast of characters had to make in the second book, which in making these decisions, they all had to kind of look inward and make a moral decision about the role that they want to play in this kind of crazy situation. The ending of this book is insane. I mean, hats off to Olivia Blake, because I really thought I knew where this was going, or I thought I had some idea of where this might end up, and it is not at all where this book ended up. It was crazy. I mean, I was truly kind of like shocked, confused, baffled. I don't know. I was just honestly kind of speechless by the ending. It was pretty wild. Overall, again, I still feel like the books feel a bit muddy to me in that there's just so much going on, and I don't always understand the characters' motivations. I don't know if that would become clear to me upon a reread. I think eventually I would like to reread these books with the clarity of knowing where it's going to end up. Like, maybe I'll be able to understand more, but there were many instances where I was kind of wondering what the heck this person was thinking about multiple characters. Spoiler alert, spoiler, okay? If you have not read the series, please skip to the end. I did not understand what the hell Raina was doing. I didn't really understand where Olivia wanted to go with the whole like God complex that Raina was experiencing, and I also felt like it wasn't clear at times what her purpose was. As a character, I didn't really understand what she served to offer at times. That was very confusing to me. She definitely is kind of the odd woman out. I don't know that like it was always clear why she was made that way. Then the whole thing at the end where she's trying to change the world using Callum to influence like one politician at a time across the world, that was so strange. And again, felt like a very drastic turn from the Raina that we understood in book 1. She's supposed to be this like idealist who wants to make the world better, but her character doesn't give you a whole lot of that in the first book, so it's kind of jarring when she starts doing that. I really enjoyed Callum's character. I thought he was great. Paris's character was also very easy to understand. Those two probably ended up being my favorite, along with Gideon. I loved Gideon. With Tristan, I feel like once you find out what he's capable of doing, it's kind of incredible, and then I feel like it didn't go anywhere relative to like the payoff didn't match the buildup, if that makes sense. I felt like there was this buildup about his power and his ability, and once you find out, it's like, whoa. And then afterwards, what he does with it is kind of like womp womp. I don't know. Again, I think I need to reread the book, but in the moment I felt like, wait, that's it? That's all we're doing with your power? Libby, by far, is the most baffling character to me. She goes through this like awful thing with Ezra, and then she just starts making these really crazy selfish decisions, and I totally get why. I actually like that Olivia Blake writes this female character who's like super hungry and ambitious and wants to be the best and is constantly trying to be better than Nico. Like they're always competing against one another, but they have this like weird relationship as well where they have this like need of the other. But then she takes this very dark turn, but her inner monologue often leads you to believe that she's going to make a different choice, and then it jumps to her just kind of like freaking out. But there's like this piece missing where I want Olivia to bridge the gap between her crazy decision making and then her freaking out. Like I wanted her to explore more of that like inner turmoil. I don't feel that I got it. I don't know. Her decision at the end to kill Nico was so baffling to me. I thought it, like the way it was written, I thought she was going to sacrifice herself. And then when she sacrifices Nico, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know. Honestly, I just think I need to reread the books, but I don't know that I want to because they're so dense. I don't know that I enjoyed them, but I wanted to know what came next in the story. And there were a few characters that I really loved. Gideon, Callum, Parisa. I felt like their character development was really well done. Livy's was very confusing to me. Tristan's was very confusing to me. Nico was kind of just like the golden retriever in the bunch. And that's fine. I mean, I was okay with him. And then Raina was like the opposite of whatever he was. And that was also like, well, it's fine, I guess, but I don't really understand your purpose here sometimes. So, yeah. Overall, I don't know how I feel about that book. I don't know what, like, I still don't really know what happens at the end. Like I know what happens, but it's very baffling. I don't know. Olivia girl, you're crazy, is all I have to say. Well, I'm pretty sure my camera is about to die and the sun is starting to peek out from behind the clouds. So that wraps up our May recap. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're coming back, thank you so much. I'm so happy and so grateful that you're here. Please make sure to share this video with your book bestie. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can keep up with all the amazing content that I have lined up for you in the coming weeks. I'm gonna head out to get a little run in before it gets too hot outside. Be sure to get outside and touch some grass today. It's good for the soul. And until next time, I'll see you next time.